Hello, survivors. This is your girl, Abby Ayoola Williams, and you're now listening to How to Survive Society. How to Survive Society is a weekly podcast that features survivors. These are people that have been through the ringers in life. They've been through hell and back, but they choose to stay positive, they choose to win, they choose to thrive, and they choose to survive. So let's get right into it.
Okay.
Hello, survivors. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of How to Survive Society. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Isabella Young. Isabella got out of a few cults, and we're going to talk about her life, how she got out of the cults, the tips, and everything like that. So, Isabella, welcome to How to Survive Society. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Abby. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you for inviting me. I haven't spoken about my cult experiences publicly before, so I welcome this opportunity. It's a really important topic because cults are everywhere, and a lot
Yes.
of people are in cults and don't realize it.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on to share your story. So I'm going to start from you said you lost your husband when you were 3 months old, pregnant with your second child. So let's start from there and then we can build upward to when you joined the cult and the reason why and all that stuff.
Okay, that was a big part of what set me up for being vulnerable to a cult experience. I was raised by a devout atheist, and the word God used to come out of my mouth with venom. I looked down upon anyone who believed in God or was religious in any way. You know, my mother was very adamant that God was a crutch for humanity, and in my 20s, I started with different like spiritual awakenings, and I met my first husband, and we had a lot of really profound experiences together. We traveled together, and we ended up having a child together. And then when I was 3 months pregnant with our second child, he basically just dropped dead at work. And my life was shattered. I was completely destroyed by that. My dreams of having a family were gone in that moment, and I was really lost. So I spent a number of years I actually would have taken my life at that point, except I had children. So anyway, I knew that I had to stay alive from them. So I spent a number of years trying to put my life back together. And I did a number of different types of courses, like shamanic workshops and healing workshops and things like that to try and heal, because I was really in so much excruciating pain on the inside. And as part of one of those courses, I got connected with this. I was very understanding of the need for a spiritual teacher or a guru. I had experiences with other Indian gurus, so I really wanted a spiritual teacher for myself. So I was connected with this teacher. His name at that time was Bhagavan Sri Pranananda, and I went over to his, what my understanding at the time was his ashram, I'm using air quotes, in California. And my children stayed in Australia, and I went there for a month. And at the end of that month, he asked me to marry him. And there were a lot of signs and synchronicities around that. So I said yes. And I brought my children over to live in America. And I got pregnant from the one time that we consummated our marriage, and he never touched me again. But because I had a child with him, I was trapped in this situation, this ashram, where he tells all the cult members that he's the second coming, the Maitreya, the Kalki avatar, and his disciples were just like Jesus's disciples, here to bring divine love to the world and model a blueprint for the new earth. And I felt very committed to my spiritual journey and to healing and to giving back to humanity. I suppose it sounds very arrogant, but that's where my thinking was at the time. But it was hell. It was torture to live under his rule, and it was under his rule. We had rules for, what we ate, when we slept. People were given assignments all the time, like transcribing his talks. So it was endless busy work. All the cult features that keep people trapped in a mindset, cut off from family and little sleep and punishments. He handed out, his big one was making people write lines. So because I wasn't so obedient, I was always writing, "I will obey my guru." My children were given punishments. All the children were given punishments. People who were in the ashram would do things like maybe they bought the wrong or fruit that wasn't ripe, so they had to sleep in the garage on a cement floor with no blankets, or they had to go pick up dog poop. It was very, and I am going to use this a swear word here, it was complete mind fuckery. And it wasn't until my son was murdered, and I know that he's responsible for that it really shocked me out of my cult mindset. And I left with my youngest daughter, to Hawaii, and that's where I am now. So no one really sets out to join a cult. It's really that having a vulnerable mindset. And because I had been so wounded by the death of my husband, and also being raised by a mother with a narcissistic personality disorder and an alcoholic, I was looking for love outside of myself. And so I was ripe for the pickings. I was a little fluffy bunny for this evil, narcissistic, demon-possessed entity who presented himself as this loving being, but was really, he's not at all. He's an evil operator, and he's still running his cult. He's still running the scam on people over there in Australia and California, and I'm not sure where else. But most con men would normally run the con and then leave and do it somewhere else. But he's been running the same con on these people for nearly 25 years now, and everyone has to pay 10% of their monthly gross income to support him and his fairly luxurious lifestyle. And people pay to go on retreats with him, and then they're asked for more money, and it's just the scam continues. And there are a number of us who have escaped the cult who have made attempts to point out the fact that he's living this is one of the funny things. So he says he's the second coming, and he was living as a gay man before I met him, and he told me all his issues were healed. So I thought we were living as a husband and wife. After I left, he came out again, so he was like the second coming out again, and now he's living an extremely promiscuous gay lifestyle. He's on Grindr and he's doing hookups all the time, all the while pretending to be a holy man, and really he's just a sex addict and a thief and a liar and a murderer and a pedophile. And the reason I know that it's not just this mind fuckery goes on, but there's dark magic that's afoot here. He trained in a mystery school. I know that he has demonic possession, because he can keep people so convinced that he's this holy man and he can do whatever he wants. And he can also keep people quiet. So none of the men, all of whom have been raped by him, he tells them that they need to explore their sexual issues with him. So a lot of the men who are straight before they enter the cult then become gay men, and he has sex with all them. They don't know about each other, and he plays them off. That's another one of his games. And then even when they leave the cult, those men are so traumatized they won't speak up. And the only people speaking up about him are these two young boys from the cult in Australia the director of the ashram there, her name's Karananda Mai, she adopted her nephews, and they groomed those boys from when they were little, told them they were gay right from the get-go, and gave them to the guru, the guru to have his way with. And they're the only ones speaking up about what's really going on in the cult. So it's a scary thing that there are people out there who can run these scams on people and get away with what they get away with.
Yes, I wanted to wow, that's a lot to deal with.
I know.
Okay. Okay, so you said, so when you met him and you got married to him and all that, were you his only wife at that time, or did he have other wives, or you just didn't know that it was in a cult? You just thought it was a normal guy that was spiritual and you were going to have like a nuclear family. And then where did you guys live? How was it in there? How many people was there at the time you were there? Stuff like that.
When I met him, he was, like I said, he said he was no longer living at that promiscuous gay lifestyle, and he was going to be living we were going to be monogamous and be living as a family. We lived in a normal home on a cul-de-sac, and there were a couple of homes in the area where the other disciples lived, and they would come to the house regularly for meetings and disciple trainings and cleaning. Everyone had to come every Saturday morning. Everyone came and cleaned the house, and they were unpaid. They were slaves, unpaid. Then they still are. People cook and clean for him. So we lived as sort of an extended family. He didn't have any other wives. But unbeknownst to me, while I was in a celibate marriage, he was not in a celibate marriage. He was, like I said, he was having sex with the men and randoms as well. So there was a lot going on that I've only found out about years later. And he was the guru. So he had his special chair in the lounge room, and people would come and kiss his feet, literally, bring him offerings and gifts, and he would give his advice, share his wisdom. And another one of the ways that he uses dark energies is to create these kind of kundalini energy experiences in people. So they'd be, like writhing and thrashing around and basically sort of looked like having orgasms, and these sort of things happened in front of the children. It was so weird and distressing for people a lot of the time. We had police come to the door and, ask us to keep it down. And he was always the spin master of everything, He would always spin the story to make himself look good and make everything seem normal, but really it was far from that.
Wow. Okay. Wow. I commend you for getting out of the cult setting. And when you said that he groomed your son and murdered him, was it the son that you had with him, or
No.
the one that you had with your ex-husband?
Yeah, it was my son from my previous marriage. And there's one thing that the common pattern in these pedophiles is that they do pick single women who have children. And there were a number of those in the cult too. That's one of his MOs was to groom young boys as well as the men, and that included my son, which we didn't know about until afterwards. The story he spun about my son's death was that he took his own life because he found out he was gay and he couldn't accept that, which is and then he told me that it was my fault that my son killed himself because I wouldn't accept him being gay, which is such a lie. It was, and then he told my daughter it was her fault. He blamed everybody for what happened. And this came out, I was so traumatized, I couldn't really even process the whole experience. I didn't ask for a second autopsy. I didn't speak to the detectives. I didn't have my right mind. It took years to want to. I couldn't read the autopsy report. It was just too traumatic. And now I know from the autopsy report, there's no way my son could have taken his own life. So there's a lot of information that's only now coming to light because of the time that's passed. There's no possibility of getting him charged or getting him what's it called, justice. So I trust that justice comes on in the bigger picture, because he lives in hell. He lives in hell. Every day he's out chasing money or anal sex. That's just the bottom line of it. And yeah, I don't know that he'll ever be actually charged for offences. I mean, he's got tax fraud in a number of different countries. So we'll just have to wait and see, really, what comes of him.
Yeah. And then after that, you escaped to Hawaii with your daughter. So how was your daughter doing? And hopefully what she went through didn't really affect her. Like, how was your daughter?
Well, when this is the sort of the level of just mind fuckery that went on. So he would say that he was it's from the Indian tradition, that he was Lord Shiva, he's the divine father and I was divine mother. And so we had this baby, and he said the baby was the embodiment of Lord Ganesha, which is from the Hindu tradition, the remover of obstacles. So when she was born, she was venerated. And up until she was about 4, and I just said, this is bullshit. This has to stop. This is not good for her, not good for anyone. And unfortunately, as a result of her childhood and his parenting, she wants nothing to do with me. I basically lost all my children because of my mother and him and the cult experiences. There's no victims here. I'm not a victim. I understand. I take full responsibility for everything that happened in my life. I'm simply telling the story. So in terms of how's my daughter, she is a victim of narcissistic abuse, and she is living her life separately from me. So I hope she's doing well. I just want to say that when I did escape the cult, I didn't escape the wounds that got me into the cult. So I got into another relationship, which was a very similar dynamic, not so intense, but because of the guilt I felt around my son's death, I felt that I punished myself in this horrible relationship. When that ended, I saw a similar pattern emerge, and I'd been studying narcissistic abuse for some time, and I realized that because I was attracting narcissists in my life, and this is a really important point to get, like a lot of people will suddenly get, oh, this person's a narcissist and that person's a narcissist and whatever. The thing is, if you know that you're surrounded by narcissists and in relationships with narcissists and suffering from narcissistic abuse, that means that you have the wound of codependency. That means that you look for love outside yourself. But the narcissistic wound and the codependency wound go hand in hand, and that's why narcissists can feed off people with that codependency wound, and codependents look to narcissists for affirmation and support for whatever they need. The thing is, they're both wounds from lack of self-love. They're just manifested differently. The narcissist will try and take from other people and in the ways that they do, and the codependents try to get from other people in the ways that they do. So once I realized that I was codependent, I knew that I had to anchor self-love within myself. Without it, I had to put that into my being, love myself completely, because that is the defense against narcissists. Once I had loved myself, and I know that now because I've been in a relationship with someone who's not suffering from narcissistic personality disorder, that's the way to know. Once you can enter into healthy relationships, I mean, it's not perfect, but I know that it's a healthy relationship. And
Wow.
so I worked hard at self-love. I self-care. I did affirmations. I made sure I stayed away from people who were vampiric, in their wanting energies from me. And I basically went into like a retreat mode. And I'm still pretty much in that. I'm really very protective of my energy now. I'm not squandering my time or energy on anyone. I don't owe anyone any of that. I don't give away my time or my love, or I protect myself now.
Which is good, because for all you've been through, and then having these guys just, prey on you and just take advantage of what you were going through. It's crazy. Oh my goodness.
So I just want to say
ahead.
that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to know ourselves. That whole know thyself, that's really important, because if you and achieve self-mastery, because if you're not mastering yourself, then someone else is going to be. There are predators out there, both seen and unseen. So unless we're really standing firm in self-love and self-knowledge, then we're vulnerable to the predators. And I see that what happens individually and also collectively as humanity too. We're under attack, and most people have no clue that humanity is being preyed upon. But I can see these things now because I've experienced those sort of dynamics in my own life.
Wow. So because of your experience now, you wrote a book called Putting on the Armor of God. So can you touch on a little bit on that?
So I was actually writing a book called Feeling Better Naturally, about the medicines for the freedom and future of humanity, which is all about natural medicines and importance of being in nature. And just when this whole pandemic thing started, and I could feel another book start through me. So I started typing, and it became the Putting on the Armor of God. And that book is about basically what's called a psyop. It's a psychological operation that's being played out globally at the moment. There are lots of them, but the main one that just being played out is this whole COVID bullshit. I mean, that's to see how that whole virus scam is being used to make people behave in certain ways, make people deprive themselves of oxygen through unnecessary masking, make people take extremely dangerous experimental drugs. I was able to see all the nefariousness of what was taking place as soon as it started. This whole COVID narrative started. I could see what was happening. So I did a lot of research to find out like what's in these shots, how they're affecting people, and why this is all taking place. As I could see that there's efforts in every sector of our social life, through the banking system, through the government, through the education system, through the medical system, even through science. There's a concerted effort to keep people ignorant of who they are, why they're here, and what's really going on in the bigger picture. So that's what Putting on the Armor of God explains, that there is a nefarious agenda that is making people very mentally ill and physically ill, and corralling people into this whole transhumanism agenda. We're all going to be moving towards a more digital economy and a more digitalized human being. Humanity is being devolved, and the energy that comes from people being sick and distressed and in fear feeds these being entities. I don't even really know what it is, but we are being preyed upon as a collective. And so I can see that it's becoming more obvious to more people as people realize that governments aren't here. They're not our friends. They're not here to help us at all. They're here to make our lives more difficult, more miserable. The health system isn't creating health. It's creating sickness. The banks don't support us to flourish. The economy doesn't support humanity to evolve and grow and flourish. The UN isn't really out about uniting people to live more full lives. We're being preyed upon, and so the book talks about that situation, and then I offer solutions to like personal suffering by reconnecting to divine nature, keep having a strong connection to God, or whatever word you want to call it, a higher power, and other beings that are around us to support us, because they are countless, and keeping a connection to nature. I mean, people don't even understand we're animals. We really are animals with intelligence, and we need to be in nature just to stay mentally and physically healthy. We need to be connected to the earth, bare feet on earth. It's a natural thing. The fact that there have been rubber-soled shoes invented, that's a part of the plan too. It makes us disconnected from the earth, and that makes us physically sick and powerless. So and all the like the sun, how important the sun is, and then there's efforts now to dim the sun, and people have been made afraid of the sun, like it causes cancer. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It gives life. There have been the brainwashing around the fear of the sun is very, very damaging to people, because we need sun in our eyes to stimulate the pineal gland and expand consciousness that way, and we need sun on our skin to promote the vitamin D production, which is basically a hormone that's a precursor for all other hormones and bodily functions. So I talk about the importance of nature and importance of connection to other people, finding a group of support people, because together we're invincible. And every effort's being made to keep us ignorant of who we are, separate from each other, and living in fear.
And that's true. Yeah. I agree with you with the sun thing, because I know nowadays a lot of companies are pushing like sunscreen and all that stuff. And I'm a Black woman, right? So this was always my way of thinking, that because I'm from Nigeria, like people in Nigeria don't use sunscreen. And I've never heard of skin cancer, So it's like if they can go on with life without having skin cancer, without any sunscreen, because sunscreen is a new thing. So why are they pushing sunscreen on people here that don't, in North America, that we don't even get that much sun in the first place because of winter? And then when summer comes, they're saying, wear sunscreen. It's like, okay, so when do you get the sun?
Well, why they're pushing the sunscreen is to cause cancer. I know it's a big leap to comprehend, but the medical system, I'm using air quotes on that too, isn't about healthcare. It's about it's a business model. They create sickness. They create sickness through the foods that they're not even foods, that ultra processed stuff, so toxic to the human body. It's no wonder people are so sick. So that with the foods and the so there's lack of nutrition, and that's all by design. This is all, we have plenty of food that's nourishing to eat. The earth produces an abundance of healthy food, but we've been brainwashed to, eat processed foods as though they're treats or good for us. No, they're really, really toxic. And the same with the pharmaceutical drugs. Iatrogenic illness, which is illness from medical procedures and products, is the third leading cause of death in the States. Well, it's probably higher than it's probably sudden deaths now as a result of the jabs that went out. But these systems are in place to make us sick. Sunscreen causes skin cancer, and also the fact that people are eating ultra processed foods with chemicals and toxins in them, like glyphosate, and they're taking the pharmaceutical drugs. and then they put sunscreen on, and they're told that that's going to protect them from cancer, but it causes it.
I know. I know exactly what you're saying when it comes to that. Like, for example, even for the fruits, right? For example, when I'm in Canada and I see a fruit on the tree, I'm so afraid to like touch it or even eat it because I'm like, what if it's poisonous, right? But then when I go to the Caribbean and I see a fruit on the tree, that thought doesn't even come to my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna eat this fruit, you know? So it's like, I feel like here in North America, we've been like conditioned to be afraid of nature, be afraid of seeing fruits on the tree and eating it. Like, we're so afraid of everything because that's what they've conditioned us to do. And I do see the big difference between like when you travel to Caribbean and people eating fruits off the tree, like, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Right. You're right. We have been conditioned, and that's important thing to realize, that there is social conditioning going on. There is, and there are agendas going on that are nefarious, and the thing is to see them, and then don't buy into that anymore. Don't be buying the ultra processed foods. Don't be taking unnecessarily pharmaceutical drugs, just or going through the operations that that are recommended but are unnecessary. Just live a more natural life, a simpler life. And the most important thing is make sure children stay connected to nature, because what's happening now, I mean, I've heard people talk about children being the hope of the future, and I just see children glued to screens. And now if I see a child playing outside, it looks like a novelty thing.
Yeah.
No, it's really scary. Because the strongest, and I'm going to talk about black magic again, the strongest black magic is in the screens, in the black screens. They're black mirrors, and they keep, and I know for myself, I have to watch my addiction with screens. It's very, very addictive and dangerous. And then so if people are living their life through screens, they're not really living a life. We're here to engage with the natural world, and it's totally unnatural for a human being to be looking at a screen all the time. We're not getting the information that we need from nature. We're not getting the light that we need. We're not getting the air. We're just not getting the human experience if we're living life through a screen and feeling like we're doing something because we're playing a game, or we're, I mean, there's a lot to learn. I'm not saying no screen time, because there's a lot of really good information to be learned through the internet, and I'm really grateful for that. But it's important to recognize that that's not really life. And there's so much programming that goes on through the screens, because that's all controlled too. All the information that comes through that is controlled as well.
I agree with you on that. It's so true. We have to find our way back to nature and back to the creator, and the regular things that we've been trying to run away from,
right, and back to our intuition.
Yes.
To be able to tune into what's going on within our bodies, to be able to listen to that, and to be able to follow that information. It's one thing to listen, but it's really important to follow intuition. And what I've learned is that if I follow my intuition, even if it doesn't feel right, it may not turn out to look right, it strengthens my intuition, so that now I don't really have to second guess myself so much. I feel very aligned with who I am and why I'm here, and I just want to say that I have escaped the cult, and I've done a lot of work on healing my wounds, and I'm no longer suffering, which is what was just most of my life, like 50 years, I was suffering all the time. I no longer suffer now. That doesn't mean that I don't feel pain and I don't cry and I don't, I still am human, but I'm no longer suffering. And it takes a lot of work to heal the wounds and to free yourself from programming from families, because families act as cults too. Families and schools and sports clubs and religions, they're all cults. All religions are cults. It takes a lot of work to extract oneself from cult thinking and cult programming. And it doesn't necessarily mean a life of unicorns and rainbows, but it does mean a life that's lived authentically, with integrity, and fully experiencing the bliss and the joy, and also being able to experience the pain and the agony of loss and missing, because without one we wouldn't be able to really experience the other. So becoming a sovereign being that's what's really driven me all my life. That's what I've always wanted, to be free. And I'm definitely a lot freer than I was 20 years ago.
I'm glad to hear that. So what advice would you give someone to prevent them from joining a cult?
Well, the first and most important thing is to know yourself. So for me, that meant studying. Well, I got to know myself mainly through the study of astrology, through sidereal astrology. I looked at my birth chart, what that meant for why I'm here, what I like, what my challenges are. And now I still follow the astrology so I can understand how the alignment of the planets is affecting me personally. And once I got to know myself, then I learned to love myself. I really love who I am. I really do. And the thing is, if you don't know yourself, then you're not really mastering yourself. I was vulnerable to like predators, like we talked about. So once I mastered myself, my emotions, then no one else can do that. That's the best protection, is self-mastery, because unless you are mastering yourself, someone else is going to be doing it, either through the internet or through your work, through your family. Heaps of people want to, take and control and all that, but you need to master yourself so that one needs to master oneself so that there's not that opportunity for others to come in and start controlling the individual. So healing all childhood wounds. Look at what your wounds are: abandonment, betrayal, or shame, or usually a combination of all those. Just find those. There's all heaps of different modalities that can be used for healing, whether it's breath work or past life regressions, or whatever it is that you want to get into, work with a therapist, or there are lots of different modalities that can be used. So healing childhood wounds and emotional wounds, so that, because if you don't heal the wounds, then that's what runs the show, right? I was running out of my emotional wounds and ended up in hell. So heal emotional wounds, and then listen to and follow intuition. That's really important. And if you hear, just feel that gut feeling, or just that something's wrong, this isn't right, what he's doing, this doesn't feel right, this isn't love, this isn't integrity, then just run. Because your intuition's right. Unfortunately, I overrode mine, and that didn't end well. And then the other thing, this is how I know that he was such the evil person, that masquerading as a spiritual teacher, and there are lots of them, that he didn't teach what we need to know as human beings. He didn't teach about natural law and about living in alignment with natural law. That's because he didn't himself. So natural law is basically do no harm. Plus, there's a lot of other principles that go along with that. But there is a natural law that is in effect at all times, and that if you do something, then that you will experience the consequences of that. We live in where the balance is always being attained. So that balance is going to be it's reached. The balance will be reached. So if we're out of balance, then something's going to happen to bring us back into balance. And I didn't know about natural law. I mean, I understand the principles of it, but it's really important to know that, understand the nature of the reality that we live in. There are laws, there are principles. And if you don't live in alignment with them, you're going to get thwacked, you're going to get sick, you're going to get hurt, and you're going to get conned into a cult. So, and then the other one is question everything and everyone. Like, don't just take someone's word for it. Don't just believe don't be watching television. That's an evil mind control device. There's nothing good that comes out of television. You can get your news, if you really need that, from other sources, but that's a mind control device. So wherever you're getting your information from, just question it. Just do your own research, do your own contemplation, and don't take what you hear from anyone just on the word there. You need to find it out for yourself.
Yes.
It's also important.
Go ahead.
I was also going to say that it's really important one has to know that evil is real. It's not just a made up thing. It's not just a Bible thing. It's actually really real. There are dark forces that do operate in this realm on earth that manipulate lives and us as a collective. It's real. Demons are real. They can get inside people. I know, I've seen it. That ex-cult leader, he's run by demons. He's a sex addict, and that runs him every day. I know people who have negative entities who keep them in a constant state of depression or fear, and there are ways to free yourself, but the most important thing is to stay protected so they don't get a hold. They can't play with you. That protection is self-love. And then to understand that our organic nature and our organic evolution is being manipulated. So stay connected to God. I've said this before, to God, to nature, and to other people, because unless we do stay and protect our humanity personally and collectively, we will be dragged down into hell, into a transhuman nightmare, as those forces, and they run by the bankers and the UN and the WHO and all World Economic Federation. Their intentions are to decrease the population and continue to enslave us, and to use us so that we don't evolve into a higher consciousness, because that's where we're heading. This is an ascension process that we're in. The light of the planet has increased. People are realizing that we are spiritual beings, not just human beings, and that we have a right to live here, flourish here in nature as sovereign beings, and enjoy this place rather than being made to pay to live. This whole taxation system and the working 9 to 5, they're all systems that are designed to crush our spirit, to control us, and to stop us evolving into the next phase of human beings, beings of light. And then the way that we can stay human and protect our humanity is to spend as much time as possible away from the screens and in nature every day, just to be connected to the earth, skin to earth every day. That's how we get the energy from the earth that we need, the negative ions that we need for our bodies to stay in balance. Like, inflammation is one of the main causes of illness. And one of the best ways to reduce inflammation is to feed on the earth, because that will balance us. It balances us electrically, physiologically, and psychologically too, to be out there appreciating the beauty of nature.
Thank you.
And then the other one is like decrease fear. Just trust that everything's, right place, right time. It's all happening. Even if it doesn't look right, it's good. It's not all good, but it's happening according to the divine plan, not the nefarious plan. Decrease fear. Enjoy yourself as much as possible, even in the simplest things. Watch the sunrise, watch the clouds go by, listen to the birds, read a book. Just do simple things for just pleasure, and love yourself, love animals, love other people. Just love, do art, crafts, cooking, being a creative being is one of the best ways to be protected from nefarious activities, because that's our natural nature too, is to create. So whether that's through whatever it is for you, just be a creative being, and every day give something to yourself, give something to your body to improve your health, give something to the earth or plants or nature, feed animals, water plants, do gardening, just give back to the earth, and then give and do something to give to other people, whether that's cook a meal for someone or run an errand or a smile, but give of yourself, and then at every opportunity increase your vibrational frequency. So do whatever it is to make sure that you're not dwelling in any sadness or fear or anxiety, because those emotions do come up, and it's important to acknowledge and feel them, but not to stay there, to know that they are passing through, and then get back to balance, get back to either neutral or positive.
Thank you so much for those tips. And if someone wants to buy your book, how can they reach you to support you?
My book's on Amazon, which is a lot of people don't want to support Amazon, but as an author, that's a great way to get the book out to the world. So it's called Putting on the Armor of God, a survival handbook for the Great Awakening and the Future of Humanity, and that's on Amazon. And I have a website. It's called feelingbetternaturally.love. And then if anyone would like to contact me personally, I have an email, which is my name, Isabella Young, the number 19 @gmail.com. That's the best ways to contact me.
Thank you so much, Isabella. Before we go, is there any last thing you would like to tell the listeners? Hello, Isabella?
I'm here. I was just thinking of something. Last thing I'd like to. I think that's really important. Just that what just happened there is to remember to choose the lighter side of life. Choose to bring joy, to bring laughter, to offer kindness and support and encouragement to others, and know that you are in the right place in the right time, and the vibrational frequency that you're offering is the most important thing that anyone can do at this point. It's not about necessarily doing a whole lot of stuff, but it's about who we are being. And if we are being a kind, loving individual, then that's really what's most important right now. And if it's if people feel to get out there and teach more, or share information, then all well and good. But it's just about being kind and being good and being helpful, being happy.
Yes, thank you. Happiness is free, like most people would say. So tap into that free resource and just love yourself. Thank you so much, Isabella.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Abby. Thank you for listening, and thanks to all your listeners. What happened to?
Okay, so go ahead. So if somebody's in a cult, how can they get out? Is that what you want to talk about? Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about, from my experience being in the cult, because people knew I was in a cult before I did. I didn't know I was in a cult until about a year after my son died, when I went to see a therapist, and he said to me, you're in a cult, don't you? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, go home and Google characteristics of a cult. And there are like 30 of them, and every one of them was what I was living in. So I realized I was in a cult. The thing is, family members knew I was in a cult a year after I left Australia. Friends knew I was in a cult. No one said anything to me. I had a few strangers or random people say something, but I didn't know. So what I would suggest, if you know someone's in a cult, is to present them with information. And what I would have done if I had been my mother, because she had the resources, I would have got a private investigator and taken photos and like followed this guy and then shown me the information that he was living another life. He was living the life as a promiscuous gay man, and then presented with the evidence that may have, made a difference. So if someone is in a cult, you can present them with information about what you know about the cult. There is what's called the Cult Institute, run by Ross Rosenberg, with a lot of information on there about cults. They list them all, and then he also provides information about how to get out of a cult. And so that would be my suggestion: is gather information and then present it to that person, and then don't give up on them, because the brainwashing that's happening in a cult it's got black magic attached to it. It's almost impossible on your own to get out. So you need help. Don't give up on the person, and then support them when they get out, because that's a difficult time too. So be there. You might sound like a broken record or whatever, but that's often what it takes, is to be that constant reminder that what's happening is not right and not good, and in fact can be quite evil.
Thank you for that. So if you're listening and you might be in a cult, or you're in a cult and you want to get out, please listen to what Isabella just told you. And if you have a family member that's in a cult and you would like to help them, please listen to what Isabella is saying, because she has been through it and she's gone out of it, and now she's doing better. So thank you so much once again, Isabella, for sharing your story and sharing tips for cults, to get out of cult, to not get into it at all, because sometimes people get in and that's it, they die or they can't get out. So
yep.
The whole point is to prevent it from happening. So thank you so much once again for sharing your life story with us.
You're welcome, Abby.
Big thank you to our guest for today. And if you would like to learn more about today's topic, please go on howtosurvivesociety.com. There you can get some life skills courses and some merchandise, and contact me if you would like to be a guest on the show. So thank you so much for tuning in, and have yourself a lovely day.